an event at the parade ground at which Sister Pender delivered a very touching presentation. I would like her to, if not deliver the same presentation, share that presentation with our audience today.
Yes, I would be grateful to be allowed to do that. Yeah, as you rightly said, our Holocaust this year was abridged because of the COVID, and we were not able to have the normal program that we have on October 12th. So we just went down to the ocean and laid our flowers. But the reparations committee, they also had planned an event on that day, leading off of our regular event that they were going to have a parade down to the ground and, you know, continue. However, because of that and other restrictions, they were only able to do it 2 Thursdays ago. And my presentation dealt with the Holocaust. So I'd like to go over that. And I hope that at the end of it, I would have enlightened most of our listeners, because not everyone has a grasp of what the Holocaust really is. So when the word Holocaust is used, the thought generated is the deaths in what Dr. Guyan termed the German Inquisition, of where European Jewish people were killed in gas chambers by lethal injections. It is said that the deaths that occurred not only in Germany, but in many European countries totaled approximately 6 million. During that period, the Nazis exterminated the Africans in Germany, especially the Moors. The socialists, others not socially acceptable. What is skeptical occurred not because of the roles that the Jews played in those murders. And whenever the issue is brought up in the United Nations, the Jews vote against the Armentis Holocaust being recognized. The main reasons are that it was the Jews of Constantinople who were mainly behind the killings. The second reason is said to be that many of the images that we see of the deaths are really the deaths of Armenians and not Jews, as it's portrayed. Now, I needed to do this overview because there are many Guyanese who are not aware of such matters. As a matter of fact, I've had people ask me, did we Africans have a Holocaust? They're not really even aware. When you say Holocaust, the only thing that comes to mind is the Jewish Holocaust. And as Dr. John Henry Clark said, we have had many Holocausts, not one, many. And of the word Holocaust, the Jews in California own that word. So in 1992, for our or African Holocaust, and that was, I don't know how many people are aware, but that term was coined by Dr. Ida B. Wells in approximately 1889 thereabout, when she witnessed the lynching and burnings of Africans in America, in the USA. And the word Holocaust means burning, death by fire or burning. So it was Ida B. Wells that coined the word Holocaust. But yet you have a group of people taking out a patent on a word that was not even theirs. Now, I have also mentioned in my yet to be published book titled Pan-Africanists Organized for Women's Equal Rights Now, 21st Century. I've mentioned in that book the Holocaust of the Hereros of Namibia. And at recent negotiations for compensation from Germany for that Holocaust, for example, and I quote, human skulls from the Herero and ethnic Nama people are displayed during a ceremony in Berlin, Germany, August 29, 2018. To hand back human remains from Germany to Namibia following the 1904 to 1908 genocide against the Herero and Nama. And that was from Reuters. And continuing with that quotation, Namibian media reported earlier on that Germany had agreed to fund 1.1 billion euros of infrastructure, healthcare, and training program that would directly benefit the affected communities. Continuing with the quotation, we have a problem with that kind of agreement, which we feel constitutes a complete sellout on the part of the Namibian government. And this was by Rukoro telling Reuters. Now, Africans have been experiencing an ongoing Holocaust at the hands of Caucasians. We're unable to hold Caucasians responsible for their Holocaust actions against us because we have allowed them to define our reality. We accept without logical analysis their naming of our experiences. They called what they did to us and the Americans slavery and a crime against humanity. We accept their further definition of our foreparents' inhumane experiences as chattel slavery or chattel. We have not taken time to logically analyze our foreparents' pre-1934 emancipation experiences. In our independence mindset, rather than our self-government mindset, we act as if we're not allowed to see that Africans in the Anglo-Americas, especially British Guiana, were never slaves. Slaves, according to the Christian God called Jesus, are expected to obey their masters. Our foreparents never. Our pre-emancipation, pre-1st of August 1834, British Guiana foreparents never acknowledged anyone as our master. Slaves gained their status as slaves because they acknowledge a master from which they're expected to be fed, clothed, housed, protected. Our foreparents acknowledged no one. Their primary thoughts were to get as far as possible from those, what I call private prison industrial complexes. So much so that Amerindians and others were hired to be wardens, even those only wardens, but bounty hunters were employed to return those who would not acknowledge prison operators as masters, but acknowledge their right to express themselves as free humans by leaving those plantations, which I call prison industrial complexes, to open their own self-governing communities called Maroon villages. The Holocaust continues today. Here, we've never done that before, but since pre-emancipation, we have been doing this. We're subjected to extermination without protest. We look forward to a master to provider of food, clothing, shelter, and protection in the form of wages and salaries. Our masters tell us that he would not provide, or they would not provide what we need if we refuse to take, which is in all respects a lethal injection called a jab, or a jab called vaccination. Against our will, we are placed in a concentration camp called a COVID hospital, as if to die. Give discuss word Ma'afa, but we will do this at another time. My focus was on introducing the term as much more than an event. It is alive. The Caucasians have been engaged in burning away from our consciousness all knowledge of ourselves. According to Dr. Gayan, they have engaged for over 500 years in making racial orphans of us. To do so successfully, they have to erase all knowledge of our ancestors from our consciousness. They're using the Protestant religions to affect that program. Their primary involvement with Africans has been in perfecting a Holocaust of the brain and mind. They're afraid that if they're not successful in that venture, they will fail to make capitalism, for example, the final and only economic system. They are aware that capitalism needs slavery to make it a success. However, cooperative needs free persons to make it a success. And that is the system that our foreparents left us with. They left us with the cooperative system. You know, going back a little to October 12th, when we got up to the seawalls to lay our wreaths, our floral tributes to the ancestors, we realized that our access to the bandstand area and to parts of the seawall was being taken away from us. We were then informed by those that were working in the area that that area where we would go to access the ocean will be turned over to Anson McCall. They were also running a road behind the Pegasus Marriott linking up to the lighthouse. Now, that leaves one to think. Our foreparents built the seawalls. Our foreparents got its name because of the shells that were found on that beach, on that street, in that area. So the ocean came in as far as there. They pushed it back. They built that with their hands. There were no hymats, there were no drudges, none of that. Our bones are in that Ethiopian Sea, which is renamed Atlantic Ocean. Because if you broke a leg or arm, there was no medication, you were thrown to the sharks. So that wall is the cause of Georgetown and the rest of this place being habitable. They built the walls, they dug the canals, everything you can think of. And to think that the children of those foreparents are going to be denied access to that ocean, that is something that we need to think about. I was told that it's going to be a tourist resort. So what I'm looking at is we have to say, Georgetown, we were told, would be one of 9 cities that will be flooded in the next 20 years or so. Now, this being so, don't you think that the seawalls should be reinforced before you think of doing anything? That's where the money should be going. You should be reinforcing the wall and ensuring that people have access to that beach. The beach belongs to the people of the country. This was tried in Barbados, and with due respect, all respect goes to Prime Minister Barrow at the time, who passed a law saying, no, the beach belongs to the people of the country. Therefore, we need to have the same thing happen here. We must have accessibility to any part of the beach, any part. So, you know, these are some of the issues. Now, Brother Elton, moving right along, we had some other issues that came up, and that was the renaming of the Promenade Gardens, the renaming of the Promenade Gardens and Middle Street. That is very, very horrific, for want of a better word, for us in this country, especially for those of us who are of African descent. And it should be for everyone, because the 1823 revolution was the revolution that brought into being emancipation. And I would like to refer our listeners to a book that I would like them to visit. It's called Crowns of Glory, Tears of Blood, and it's by Emilia Viotti da Costa. And in that book, she clearly expressed what occurred during the 1823 revolution. She explained fully and how, and dramatically, how our foreparents, after the 1823 revolution, those they considered the ringleaders were rounded up. They massacred at Nabaklis over 200. And many of those, their heads were placed on staves and lined the East Coast Road. But then they went from prison complexes, from plantation, so-called plantations to plantation, finding ringleaders, bringing them to Georgetown to be tried. And those people pulled their black coffins all along Main Street, into Middle Street, into the parade ground. Now, bearing in mind, the parade ground borders Newmarket all the way down to Kwamina. So all where the Cheddi Jagan Medical School and the doctors' quarters and all those businesses, that's parade ground. The Promenade Garden is parade ground. Now, for someone, and our foreparents were tried, they were hung, they pulled their own coffin, hung on trees. Some of them, their heads were decapitated and placed on staves around that ground. And now you're telling me that a suggestion is going to be made for that ground to be named in honor of Gandhi, not only the Promenade Gardens, but also Middle Street. That's an affront to the foreparents and to us. And what is sad is that there were governmental ministers there when the High Commissioner, the Indian High Commissioner to Guyana, made that suggestion, and no one said anything. No one. This is very disturbing because they are fully aware of the history of the parade ground. It was in 2000 that President Jack Dio himself, with Gail Teixeira, Keith Booker, and our former Prime Minister Hamilton Green giving the address, Jack Dio, they dug the soil and buried coins for a monument to be placed on that parade ground. Yet, 14 years later, the same regime were giving that ground to Baijin Ling to put a 3-story car park. Great amnesia, isn't it? And then taking the monument with the aid of our own artist, Ivory Tom, taking it and putting it at the seawalls. So you see, they have a plan to remove all the history, all the memory of our foreparents from this nation. It was Dr. James Rose who stated that the parade ground is itself a monument. And I would like to add to my friend's statement, it's not just a monument, it is the most sacred monument there is, because that was the killing fields. And it was the other foreparents who, after the 1823 killing, they used to go to the section and plant flowers and trees as a tribute. That is how the Promenade Garden was formed. So it is very disturbing. And the 1823 coalition came together with the aid of ACTA and our former Prime Minister Hamilton Green, and prepared a press release. That press release was sent to all media houses, none of them printed. So to date, we have sent that press release to the High Commissioner of India here in Guyana. We have sent it, copies of it, to Dr. Irfan Ali, President. We've sent it to Mr. Charles Ramson Jr., Minister of Culture, and we've also sent it to Mr. Joseph Harmon, Leader of the Opposition, because as I told you, the government is the administrating body and the opposition. So this was done approximately now 10 days ago, and we're giving a couple more days before we move on to the next, because no one has saw it fit to acknowledge receipt of these letters or to state what they intend to do about it, because I think it's the most horrible thing. But what I'd like to do is to say this. Let me just quote some of the things that we placed in that correspondence. We stated about Gandhi's anti-African writings. One of the first battles Gandhi fought after going to South Africa was over the separate entrances for whites and blacks at the Durban post office. Gandhi objected that Indians were classed with the natives of South Africa, who he called Kafirs, and demanded a separate entrance for Indians. In an open letter to the Natal Parliament in 1893, Gandhi wrote, "I venture to point out that both the English and the Indians spring from a common stock called the Indo-Aryan. A general belief seems to prevail in the colony that the Indians are a little better, if at all, than savages or the natives of Africa." Make a note of the word that he's calling the natives savages. Even the children are taught to believe in that manner, with the result that the Indian is being dragged down to the position of a raw Kafir. In response, I continue with some of his anti-African remarks. Now, protesting the decision of Johannesburg municipal authorities to allow Africans to live alongside Indians. Now, this is in their own country, I want you to know. Gandhi wrote in 1904 that the council, I'm quoting, must withdraw the Kafirs from the location. About this mixing of Kafir with Indians, I must confess I feel most strongly. I think it is very unfair to the Indian population, and it is an undue tax on even the proverbial patience of my countrymen. I can go on and on with the racism of this man. And what people don't know, and I've seen it being played repeatedly on Channel 9. Martin Luther King said that to ignore Gandhi at your own peril. What nonsense. Martin Luther King did say that, but he, like everyone else, had no idea of who Gandhi truly was. We were all fooled, including me. I thought this was this great icon until we started reading his works, until you got to understand who this man really was. The great fast that they talk about, this fast on humanity that he is praised for. Let me tell you what that fast was all about. That fast was because they were making advances, or they were making demands from the Dalits that they wanted a Dalit, which is an untouchable, or quote unquote, the name that they were called at the time was Black man. That's where the term Black man came from, because they were considered the foot of the Hindu god. Now, those untouchables, those Dalits, a Dalit was supposed to be going into parliament. Gandhi said, I would rather die than have a Dalit in the Parliament of India. So that is what his fast was about. And when, as the fast continued, they were told that if you allow him to die, you know what will happen to you people. So they had to withdraw their candidate because they know what their fate is. The person who wrote, who was instrumental in writing the Constitution of India, was himself a Dalit. And Gandhi turned his back on that man. Dr. Ambedkar, please look it up. He, a Dalit, was the most qualified and wrote the Constitution of India. You don't hear about these things. And he was from the caste, the subcaste, that had to wear a broom around their waist. So when they walk, they will sweep the earth because they were considered so dirty and whatever that the others could not walk where they tread. That is how vicious it was. So don't be fooled. And we will not sit here and allow something like that to happen on the head of our foreparents. No way. No, it cannot be. Because all over the world today, people are removing the statues of Gandhi. So why are we allowing these things to happen? We need the statue out of the Promenade Garden. There's no place for him there. It needs to be on their space. It needs to be between Camp and Alexander Street, not in the Promenade Garden. It was Dr. Kabon, who is a professor of African Studies in Ghana, that brought this out, made us aware, because as he saw the statue in front of the University of Ghana, he said they must not know. So he got about 60 something of Gandhi's racist comments, racist writings, and turned it into the university, sent it to the professors, to the students, who immediately told them that they had to remove it. So, you know, these are the sort of things that we are faced with. In the final analysis, the Holocaust is the negation of a people, that is making them not exist. It is worse than marginalization. Here in Guyana, our foreparents fought and died in many pre-emancipation struggles. This nation has shown very little official recognition of those struggles. And it seems a great deal of effort is being made to negate those struggles. I just listed the latest, and I told you about the previous one with the Baijialing and the car park. So it goes on and on and on. So I hope that I was able to give you a little insight as to what is going on with us here and how they are trying to erase all anything that has to do with the true history of our foreparents. Brother Elton, you know, the one that I always like to talk about is to show you how they have gone to the depth of telling our young children, that Indians were the first rice planters in Guyana. What nonsense. Who planted this rice before 1838? You know of the Baracara gold, you know of the rice that was planted in our maroon village of Baracara. You know the rice was brought here in the braids of the Africans. So these are the kind of things that we have to
Let's discuss those issues at another day, because we have Brother Barrington waiting to do his little presentation, and
okay, well,
our audience.
And I just want to leave in minds of the people that are listening that we still have another major issue, and that is the proposal of bringing in Afghans into Guyana to settle them in the Wales estate, because they say the houses are already there. Yeah.